NLCS2 戦を終え、ニューヨーク入りしたメッツとドジャース、これまでの結果と今後の展望について考察している番組が多く放送されていました。大谷翔平選手、リンドーア選手への注目度の高さ、そしてこれから始まる第3戦以降のポイントがどこになるのか解説している番組が多かったですね。両軍監督インタビュー映像と合わせて翻訳してお届けいたします。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーに関する現地放送局の様子を翻訳してお届けしております。お見逃しのないよう今のうちにチャンネル登録をお願いいたします。
Joe, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with the Dodgers first, who came out in Game 1 and kind of punched the Mets right in their throat. Of course, the Mets would answer, but Game 1 looked like a very complete team. Game 2, not so much. What is your X factor in this series for both teams?
Yeah, I mean, it was the latest snapshot of how fast things can change, right? They completely changed roles, and the Dodgers, it looked pretty one-sided in that first game, but it looked just as one-sided yesterday with the Mets getting off to that fast start. I think the start to the game is huge. The Mets have been really reliant on comebacks so far this postseason, and Smoltz was saying it during Game 1. That's just it's fun, but it's not the way to live sustainably. So they get off to the fast start yesterday and totally changed the deal. You know, you're able to not have to cover as many innings with your bullpen because the starter goes deep like Mania did, relatively speaking. And then when you get a lead and you have Diaz, even though that's been shaky, if you get good Diaz, I think that winds up being the biggest difference in this series. What version of Edwin Diaz do you get if you're the Mets?
That's a great question and a good point. Let me ask you this, because there was some question, Joe, about why Dave Roberts elected to go with a bullpen game in Game 2 instead of throwing Walker Buehler in Game 2. You've had a lot of conversations with them. You've seen this team on the daily basis. What was the thought process behind a bullpen game in Game 2?
I think instead of Game 3, in that if you do Game 3 as a bullpen game, you're playing 3 games in a row right then, 3 games in 3 days, and it's harder to recover if you have to really unload the pen and use all your top arms. Whereas if you do it in Game 2, as they did, you have the off day to follow that, and then you get a legitimate starter going to begin your 3 games in 3-day stretch.
Shohei Ohtani needs to get things going offensively. It sounds very strange to say that, considering Shohei Ohtani is creating historic categories all his own. What have you noticed from his approach?
You know what's crazy, Alana, is how different it is, not necessarily approach, but the outcomes where the base is empty. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's something like 6 out of 9 with runners on base. 0 for 19 or 20 with the bases empty. So, of course, he's going to get pitched more difficultly when the bases are empty. You can be more careful. You're not going to give him as much to hit, but that is drastic. And I'm interested here the next 24 hours as we get ready for Game 3. I want to dive in and see how different it is that he's being pitched, you know, how many strikes he's getting when there are guys on base versus not, if he's being over eager in those situations at all, and just kind of see what's behind this. Because, you know, look, during the regular season, it's a week and a half where it's like, oh, Shohei is not quite as dominant as he has been, but everything is so magnified. You get to this time of year, like you said, they do have to get him going.
Well, I tell you what, he's certainly, I shouldn't say certainly, likely going to be the National League MVP. But if it wasn't for the year that Shohei is having, Joe, it would be Francisco Lindor getting that award. What has been so impressive to you about the way that he's kind of gone about his business? I mean, the Mets go as Lindor goes.
Yeah, if you look at the stat line, it's obvious that he's been great. But then when you start diving into the season story for the Mets, every time, just like yesterday, that they needed somebody to step up, it seems like it was him. They get beat 9-0 in Game 1. They're in desperate need of a mood change, a new tone set. And in an 8-pitch at-bat, he finishes it with a solo home run to set an entirely new tone for the second game. And the Mets were off and rolling from there. Just the latest example of him not just giving him production, but giving him timely production, meaningful hits, as he's done throughout this run.
This has been the hottest Met team for a long time. I did question why Kodai Senga in Game 1. It's a moot point at this point. They're moving to Game 3 in Queens. But what was your thought process about starting Senga, who's been hurt and hasn't pitched a ton this year, starting him in Game 1? What was Mendoza's thought process behind that?
I think a high upside play. They still think that if he's right, that that's the best stuff that they have. Now, I don't know how sure anybody could be that you're going to be right when you've only pitched 7 innings all year. So it was definitely a bit of a gamble, especially when you have 3 starters that you know you can rely on, that they now have lined up at this point with Manaea to Severino and Quintana. I don't know that you can pitch Senga again with how that looked. I don't know that you need to. We'll see as the series goes on. You know, on a 7-game series, the length can sometimes test you, make you do things you'd rather not. Hindsight's 20/20, but they had a guy who they felt like the stuff is as good as anybody they have, and gave it a shot, and it did backfire. But thank God for the Mets, they have Manaea and these legitimate starters to follow it and make up for it.
Yeah, Manaea's looked great so far as a Met. Let me ask you this. Game 3, Walker Buehler, Luis Severino. As you mentioned, Severino has pitched good at home. Walker Buehler has struggled a bit on the road. For both of those pitchers, Joe, how do you know that they're on? What do you need to see right away?
It's going to be like it's 2018 all over again. Those two guys pitching in a big game, right? I think for Walker Buehler, it's the fastball command. He's got a million different pitches, but can he command his fastball? And you know, the numbers in his last start against San Diego, they weren't good. He gave up 6 runs. If you can ever say that the start was better than it looked when he gave up 6 runs, I think this would be the case. All 6 runs came in 1 inning. There were some soft hits in that inning, a couple errors in that inning that kind of schemed against him. Otherwise, 4 scoreless innings against a good Padres lineup. So the Dodgers, I think, taking some kind of comfort from that. And Luis Severino, just like everybody in this Mets rotation, very quietly has fueled this great run down the stretch. The Mets rotation, you know, we talk about Lindor and we talk about Vientos and all the magic this offense is providing. The rotation's been the best in the National League for a month and a half, 2 months, with guys that you wouldn't picture leading the way like that. So, you know, the Mets feel like their biggest strength in this series, their biggest advantage in this series is the pitching head-to-head as they get to this legitimate run of throwback starters games 2 through 4.
This one seems like it's going to be a knockout, drag-out fight. I would not be surprised, Joe Davis, if it goes to 7 games.
NCT Ballpark Cam turned on at Citi Field, where I am, as the Mets and Dodgers will be working out a little bit later today. That series is all evened up at a game apiece after Mark Vientos and the Mets got the job done in Game 2 yesterday. Jake, now that we are 2 games in, what is your biggest takeaway from the NLCS thus far? Oh, you can see me. Hi.
My biggest takeaway is the Mets belong in the NLCS. This is not an underdog role anymore. These teams are tit for tat, and we saw that yesterday. And I believe the Mets now have that feeling of, hey, we knew they were resilient. We knew they were tough. But we've always felt like they've been kind of overachieving. This team is a really good baseball team and slapped the Dodgers around yesterday when they had all the momentum in their corner. So they're resilient. They're tough. We know that. They belong in the NLCS. I think over on the other side, you can say that we have a David versus Goliath, Yankees versus Guardians, clear underdog. That is not the case in the NL. Tit for tat. I can't wait to see how this series plays out.
Yeah, I look at it too, like, you know, this is kind of what was expected, right? Like, the Mets have a $300 million payroll. And so it's not like this is some small market team that we're shocked is on the stage. Like, they showed up, you know, middle of June or beginning of June, and they haven't stopped. But I'll tell you what my biggest takeaway is. We saw the Grand Slam. Mark Vientos is a monster. Like, this dude is tearing the cover off the baseball. He did it in the regular season. And what he's done in the postseason, his ability to give tough at-bat and foul off pitch after pitch. I mean, we see the numbers, 378, 3 home runs, 11 RBI, 6 runs scored. It's not just like jumping all over the first pitch. He's comfortable hitting with 2 strikes. He's in the zone at the plate. He's so well balanced. He fights off tough pitches till the pitcher makes a mistake. And then he's coming up with the clutch hits. Like, they knew it was in there. This guy was the prospect in the minor leagues with power that they knew would be unlocked, and he is unlocking it on the biggest stage. And it's been fun to watch. And they have all the polar bear, and they have Lindor, and they have all these established superstars. Mark Vientos has proven himself worthy of being on this stage too, and it's been fun to kind of see him come into his own right now in front of our eyes. They got a special group. This is a dogfight. This is 6 or 7 games. This is going all the way.
But I can't count the Dodgers out with Ohtani leading this game off. And then you're talking about Walker Buehler and Yamamoto to a well-rested Pen. Flip a coin.
Yeah, I mean, it is a coin flip. And by the way, I appreciate Kevin sending Jake a text and saying we need a little bit of more assertiveness. Kevin does that to me too because I like to toe the line here. But you know, you mentioned Walker Buehler, and I thought his performance in San Diego, like he gave up 5 spots in the second inning, and you thought, oh, here we go. He's really struggled with putting guys away this year. The breaking ball not quite as sharp as it's been in the past. Velocity's there. His ability to stay in that game through 5 kind of just opened some eyes to me of like, okay, it's there. He's just been missing. He gives up the crooked number. If he can figure out a way to put some guys away with 2 strikes, like finish some people. He had no strikeouts in that game, and that to me is concerning. But it is a coin flip. Both of these teams, I mean, look at them. They're stacked top to bottom. They have MVP candidates. They have all-stars. You know, like they have stars, both teams. So like who wins? I don't know. Whoever out-executes the other person. So I'm going to toe the line. I'm going to say I don't know. I can't be assertive. I want to sit here and say I love Severino. He's well rested. He's been great. This guy's been a stud for them, not just in the postseason, throughout the regular season. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a dart against the dartboard. Tonight when I get home, I'm going to walk down to the local pub, and then they have a dartboard there, and I'm going to put up Dodgers Mets, and I'm going to throw a dart. And I don't know. I don't have that good of accuracy with a dart. So whatever it lands on, that's who I'm going with tonight.
You got to be careful in those pubs in Chicago.
Yeah,
just a warning.
I might not make it home time for dinner. I get you. Yeah.
Hey, look,
miss
Sierra.
Curfew.
Sierra, that weather that you're dealing with out there today, advantage Mets. It's cold. The LA's
100%.
Advantage Mets.
100%. We were sitting on the surface of the sun yesterday. I actually got sunburned compared to today, and I'm freezing. I need those, what are they called? The little things you put in your pockets?
Hand warmers.
Yeah, the little hand warmers.
Yeah, I need the hand warmers. I'm gonna go to Costco tonight and buy an entire box because I'm definitely gonna need them.
I think in totality, with Walker, I would want the same effort, execution, focus, and certainly a different result. And I say that a lot of it was Walker's, not doing. Yeah, I think a lot of the same. And obviously in this situation, series at 1-1, here on the road again, which we feel really confident in Walker. I expect he's going to come out with the same kind of conviction and focus. So I talked to Gavin. Gavin feels much better today. So we'll see how he comes in tomorrow, but my expectation is that he'll be in there. Freddie, haven't seen him yet. My expectation is that he'll be in there. And Huddy, haven't seen him either. My expectation is he'll be ready to go tomorrow. It is a day-to-day conversation. I just don't see any world that he doesn't start a playoff game in the NLCS. But again, if he can't do it, that's very telling. The weather probably will play a factor. I hope it won't be too kind of limiting. But yeah, I think we're mindful of it. But, as of tomorrow, having the off day, I feel good about tomorrow. And let's just hope that, he can get out of it feeling good for game. Early on, it's just funny how things change where there was a lot of concern about Shohei not being able to get hits with the runners in scoring position. And now we're all trying to find ways that have to get guys on base so he can hit, right? So I kind of find that comical a little bit. So I don't think anyone can predict who's going to get on base in Game 3 or Game 4. So I feel that, kind of there's some tweaks that I do make as far as, Teo, Freddie, the 5, 6, maybe the 7, 8, 9. But to think that, I'm going to move Shohei to the 4 or the 3, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and we've done it the whole year. Like I said that day, we get punched, we find a way to get back up, and it's gonna be a fun series, man. A lot of back and forth, 2 really good teams, and we just got to continue to fight. But it was good for us to, especially after we played that Game 1, for us to come out on the first inning with Lindor and then continue to add on, obviously Vientos with the big one, and then finishing up and getting the victory there. It was important now, back here at home, and get ready for Game 3. I don't think he changed. It was Shohei Ohtani. He's one of the best hitters in the league. So whether it's nobody on base or people on base, you got your work cut out. And you have to manage the game and see how you're going to attack him, how you're going to pitch to him in certain situations. But like I said, runners on base, not runners on. Like he's an elite hitter and he's dangerous. So I don't think he changes much. He's going to be a huge part of this team. He's been huge for us, and he continue to do so. There's a good chance he's in the lineup tomorrow. Like I said, he's a professional hitter, and he means a lot to this team and to that lineup. So his presence and, like I said, whenever he's in there, it makes us a better team as well. So, yeah, he's going to be a big part, continue to be a big part of this team moving forward.
注目されていた大谷選手の打順の変更ですが、ロバーツ監督は変更させない様子でしたね。明日の試合からはメッツのホームゲームで、球場の雰囲気もドジャースにとっては恐ろしいものとなるでしょう。ウォーカー投手が先発とのことですが、なんとかいいピッチングして、ドジャースが1勝でも挙げてロサンゼルスへ戻れることを祈りましょう。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。さようなら。